There's a problem with this book, and it's these models. Welcome to Tattooed Tabletop. My name is James, and today we are going to discuss the Slaves to Darkness Battletome. Now, what about it specifically? Because obviously you read the title and you know that I have a problem with this book. But what is it specifically? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to talk to you about is the Darkoath, that part of the Battletome. Here's the problem. Now we're just going to go over a couple things very briefly, my issues with it, the things I think that they might be able to do to help fix the problem, and also just some kind of examples of exactly what I'm talking about. So what is my problem? Now, in the most un-GW fashion that most people can probably think of, GW released a bunch of new models for Slaves to Darkness, and they were called the Darkoath. They were replacing the old kind of barbarian-looking models. They're the new ones, more specific for Warhammer, as they have been doing with many other things and the such. But in the most un-GW way possible, they released these awesome, crazy, detailed new models with these barbarians, and they have the new Marauder Horsemen, and they're called Fell Riders, and they're sweet, and there's a new Darkoath book. And the rules aren't great. The rules suck, actually. Point of fact, they're not great. Now, as most people know, when dealing with GW, usually when they release new models, they give the new models, gas on the rules side of things, so that way they sell a little bit better. Now, I don't think the Darkoath necessarily sold poorly. I think they probably, I would like to hope, sold well. I mean, I have 2 sets of Darkoath, and I am jacked about it because I think that they're one of the cooler aspects of the Slaves to Darkness models. I think they're the cooler side of Chaos, and the fact that they're not necessarily completely and utterly devoted to the Dark Gods. They're more or less just pissed at Sigmar. Sigmar left them behind. They're the people who were left behind. Makes sense. So the rules come out, they're not great, whatever. I mean, at that point, we're getting towards the end of 3rd edition. Most people thought to ourselves, like, okay, well, maybe we'll give it a second. The 4th edition index comes out, and still not great. Okay. I mean, Fell Riders have a place somewhat in the army, kind of okay. And then they released the book. And this is the place where, if you're going to expand the rules, this is the place to do it, because you have multiple formations, you have updated war scrolls. There's a good chance for you to reinvigorate the rules of some of this. They didn't do it. Instead, the Darkoath's rules changed a little bit to my recollection. Again, I haven't played Slaves of Darkness over intensely, but I remember watching the reveals of these war scrolls coming out, and they're just not great. The internal balance of this book is just flat out not great. And that's unfortunate, because this is something that I think GW should really lock in on. I think the greatest feeling you can have as a wargamer is going through, building your list, and having difficulty selecting your units, your data sheets, whatever you want to call it. Data sheets if you're, Warhammer, Battle Scrolls if you're talking Age of Sigmar, potato. But basically, it's a good feeling when you're like, but these 2 units are so good, but which one do I want for my army? This doesn't have that problem. Chaos Chosen, going in the list. Be'lakor, probably going in the list. These things are shoo-ins automatically, and that's just no fun. We've already just experienced this even with the Stormcast Eternals. Right now, Stormcast Eternals are actually the most 5-0 scoring army out there in Age of Sigmar. You can check the Honest Wargamer stats. It shows that they are an incredibly winning army, and the problem is when you see the results that are coming out of these grand tournaments for these armies, you're just seeing the same list over and over and over and over again. And I don't think that's healthy for the hobby. I don't think that's healthy or particularly great for the hobby, because it just means you're playing the same thing over and over again, and it's because the rules as written for the specific units that you see in these books and that you see here are just the same thing over and over again. I mean, you flip through it, and of course you're going to pick Chaos Chosen because they're a 3-up save, 3 wounds a pop, and I believe there are 3 attacks, 3s plus to hit, 3s plus to wound, crit mortals, -1 rend, which is pretty standard across the board these days. 2 damage a pop, How are you not going to choose Chaos Chosen? Yeah, 3 attacks. And they can also fight twice, once per battle, per unit. 2 reinforced units, that's 2 blocks of 30 wounds apiece, 3 up save. And in this book, especially the way they changed the rules, the way they changed how the Dark Gods work, you can give them a 3d6 charge. They don't have movement problems. This book out Iron Jaws' Iron Jaws. They outdo the Oryx on their ability to charge and to get into combat. That's kind of depressing. This shouldn't be that fast. Like, that's the whole shtick of the Iron Jaws. They literally sprint in screaming, but for some reason, these guys go faster, they hit harder, and they do more. It's something that's going to need to be addressed with the AoS Battletome. Boy, I hope it does. Hopefully this ages well. And by the time that this video comes out, there should be a Battlescroll coming during this week. So fingers crossed, knock on wood. And of course, I'll be sure to actually maybe even link that down below, just in case that comes up. So what are my particular qualms with the Darkoath? Well, while looking through the Darkoath, and I did some review of this a little bit earlier, so far, other than the Darkoath Chieftain, on Warsteed, by the way, you got to have a horse in order to feel better about yourself. Everybody is a 5-up save. Now, I understand that Games Workshop went through all the models, looked at them physically, and they're like, are you wearing armor? If you're wearing a good amount of armor, thumbs up, we're going to give you a better save. If you're wearing less armor, not so much. Understandable philosophy. For example, my Flesh Eater Crypt Ghouls have a 6-up save. That makes sense. They're pretty much naked cannibals running around and screaming and screeching and just, trying to eat something. That makes sense. The Darkoath wear less armor, obviously. They sometimes carry shields, shoulder pauldrons, something to that effect. But when you're 1 wound apiece, and the only way to get a ward is by either being near another foot hero, which you have to pay points for, and also only moves 5 inches, or in the case of the Darkoath War Queen, she can, on a 3-up, pick an objective and give people a 5-up while they are contesting that objective. That's really not going to do a lot for your army. Now, here's the other rub of it. So here's the other fix. So realistically, by all accounts, you should be able to fit a lot of these models, right? Because they have bad saves, they have 1 wound apiece. I mean, then in that case, you should be able to run a lot of them, right? Wrong. Over the weekend, I took the liberty of, typing up some notes and making some lists. This is just for quick reference, because obviously my phone's right there. You're in my phone right now. But I even looked at, for example, I have a list that is what I like to kind of call a hybrid. I think it's actually kind of a cool, fun, lore-friendly list. It involves a Demon Prince, 10 Chosen, but then a lot of Darkoath, because that would make sense. The Useless Darkness would come and claim the Darkoath and, bring them into the fold and be like, you now are fighting for the Ever-Chosen, etc., yada, yada, yada. It's cool. That's 1960 points. That includes the Demon Prince, 10 Chosen, 15 Fell Riders, 40 Marauders, because they're both reinforced blocks, 1 Wilder Fiend, and 1 Chieftain Horse. That comes to 1960 points. Now, specifically when we're drawing contrast here, 10 Chaos Chosen right now, as it stands, is 520 points, while the 40 Marauders is 200 points. So you're looking at about a difference of 320 points. Now, what are you exchanging for that? Well, out of those 40 Marauders, that's 40 wounds at a 5-up save, and probably not fishing much for a ward. You can't rely on the ward, realistically, and the combat profile is just, it's not great. Or you could pay the extra 320 points, get a 3-up save, get crit mortals, get 3 damage, 2 damage, 3 attacks, 3 threes -1, 2 damage. And you can give them run and charge, and literally pledge their banner to any of the Dark Gods that you really see fit, but there are some that are just kind of better than others. And yeah, you're going to pay that every single time. Also because, you're going to keep it down to less drops, which is always going to be better. Now, that obviously included the Demon Prince. What if we do the flip side? What if we run your Darkoath? We could do it. You and me. Run it. So what does it look like? It's also 1960 points. It has 1 Darkoath Chieftain on horse, 2 Darkoath Chieftains on foot, 1 Darkoath War Queen, because again, if you're wanting to give your Darkoath wards, you need to have these units to be around them or to do things or to activate one after the other. And spoiler alert, we're also going to go over their oaths, and I like the oath mechanic. I do not like what they did with them here. So Those are our hit leaders, and we have 20 Fell Riders, 30 Marauders, 2 Wilderfiends, and the Gunner brand Oathbound, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well, the Oathbound. That is a 149 wounds with very difficult rewards to get, and all at a 5-up save. Are you kidding me? Come on! These are some of the coolest looking barbarian models out there, and you're giving them these rules? That doesn't include a spellcaster, except in the Oathbound. Yeah, it's at this point, it's GW letting know that you shouldn't be running Darkoath. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You'd rather pay the points for the other things that are just going to be better. That's talking about that internal balance. Again, I try and be as positive as I can in the hobby because I think that this hobby is incredible. And don't get me wrong, I'm still going to paint up my Darkoath models. They're sitting right over there with my Wilderfiend, and I am stoked to paint them up eventually. However, it's not going to be for a while. And this didn't speed up that process at all in me wanting to actually do that. So at 1960 points, 149 wounds, it's just not worth it, man. There's things that GW need to do. Either I don't know if at this point you can decrease the points any further, because realistically, your Marauders are already at 100 points. For 20 of them, it's 200 points. I mean, the best bet would be to swap them and to change them to 20 block. They did it with the Crypt Ghouls. The Crypt Ghouls went from 10 block to 20 block. I think that makes a lot more sense. That's based on their saves. They're very horde-like. That's what the Darkoath horde should be, is it should be 20 of them running around. That makes more sense. But as it stands right now, that's not the case. All across the board, there's no saves. Not to mention you have 5 wounds. Some of them have crit mortals, not in a lot of great spaces, and they're also hitting worse than your Chaos Chosen. They're hitting worse than a lot of your better stuff. There's just better units in the book. And unless you're just really, really wanting to bring Darkoath, if you're playing competitively, you want, and you're going to bring the other stuff. Just point of fact, that's what you're going to bring. Unless you just don't have it and you're like, all right, well, there's a tournament coming up. Let's actually quick, before I get too far along, let's talk about Gunner Brand's Oathbound. Now, I have qualms with this specific group of models. Number one, they're super cool. I love the Oathband. They are super cool. The story's great for them. I mean, by all accounts, they should be really dope. They're really cool models. However, there's a problem. In my opinion, Gunner does not do the damage that he should. Realistically, in my humble opinion, Gunner is supposed to be this big, super awesome, be a Darkoath chieftain who has led his people and has done incredible things. This is a dude who sliced his hand and made an oath that he is going to kill a freaking vermin lord. Like, he is like, nope, that thing. I won't rest until that thing is dead. And it's awesome. I love that. I personally enjoy that. But if we take a look at his profile real briefly here, 6 health, 5-up save. Can even give him a 4-up. Seriously, he's this cool and you're giving him a 5-up. 10 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, rend 1 damage, and crit mortals. And of course, he can use 2 fight abilities, but of course, he's going to get strike last. Spoiler alert, if you fight with him once and you don't kill the thing that's going to kill him, unless you pair in a bunch of other stuff that's actually scary and threatening, something's going to turn at him, sneeze on him, and he's going to die. I know, I played Fire Slayers. I have 5-up saves, and I have 5 to 6 wounds to work with. I even have a ward, and they're dead. Gunner Brand doesn't even have a ward, unless he's near. Oh, wait, no. Sorry. That's not even if he's near anybody. He has to complete his once per battle Oath of Bloodshed. He has to kill an enemy hero with his combat attacks. His 10 attacks on 4s, 3s, -1/1. He's not going to do it. Gunner is such a cool hero. And I know this because I read this book, this Darkoath book by Chris Thurston. It is a good book. I thoroughly enjoyed my read of it, also because it wasn't about chaos necessarily. It's about Darkoath. It explained them. It talks about Gunner and his path and what he's doing, his path of the dark gods, and what he's doing to lead. And he is this super awesome model. He kills a Cornate champion. He kills a Zinchian champion. He goes out and he messes stuff up. This is a guy that you do not want to mess with unless he's in here, in which case go ahead, just pluck him off. Especially in a meta where there's a lot of shooting, you'll probably find a way to shoot him, and even at a -1 you're still going to pluck him. He's got a 5-up save. He's going nowhere. He doesn't have a ward built into his war scroll. He's dead. The only reason he makes it into the list is so that you can actually use him for battle tactics. And even then, because it's just to send him this way, send his other guys this way, and you're like, cool, I've taken the flanks. Done. Or you could just spend the points on Chaos Furies, which are cheaper, on a 3-up can run away, and you just, they just go, they take the flanks for you. If they die, they die. Otherwise, 50, over a 50% chance, roll dice, 3-up. All right, they leave, and they continue to get more battle tactics for you. Kind of seems like Chaos Furies are a bit more effective. The one thing that Gunner Brand does give you is he gives you a caster in Broken Naja, and the spell for Broken Naja is actually okay. That's still just one cast. You'd probably go with a Chaos Sorcerer, and it'd probably do a little better, but who knows? It's a toss-up, but you're probably going with the Chaos Sorcerer. So again, that's my problem with this book, is realistically, this isn't just about the Darkoath. This is about internal balance of codexes. Obviously, we're on the first set of codexes for 4th edition. We just had the Skaven, the Stormcast, and the Slaves of Darkness. We don't have much to operate with to begin with, but these need to be a bit more vetted, right? I mean, I looked at the Stormcast Eternals Battletome, and there is a review coming, just a heads up. And basically, there are some other models in there that I think are sleeper picks, but the reason you keep seeing the same 5-0 list across the board for Stormcast Eternals is because they're just inherently better battle scrolls that are just better. Just pure pound for pound, point for point, and the best thing that they can do is increase the points on those models and hope it deters people enough to go and switch to the other stuff. And even then, when it goes and forces them to switch to other stuff, it doesn't necessarily improve that faction's balance. All it does is make the best things in there cost more. That to me isn't internal balance. That is just trying to adjust accordingly, to try and tip the scale towards a sort of balance, but it's not balance, is it? It's just, this is better, and now it costs more, so it moves a little, but this thing is still definitively better than this thing. That is my grievance with the Slaves to Darkness Battletome. Again, overall, it is a good book. I mean, Slaves of Darkness have been doing very, very well. They were actually one of the most popular factions out there in Age of Sigmar, which is not something I personally saw coming, if I'm being honest. I mean, I know people like Chaos. I love Night Lords. I like Chaos Space Marines. And, these guys are all right, though I personally prefer the Darkoath side of things. I think the Conan the Barbarian vibe is infinitely better, which is what makes me sad, particularly. But you ask anybody, even people who do very much experience the Slaves of Darkness side and play them very regularly, they all saw the Darkoath models and they're just like, okay, guess I don't have to get that now. Even if that's not their flavor, they just admit that those rules just genuinely aren't better. And that's just the most unfortunate part. So that is my breakdown of the issue with the Slaves of Darkness Battletome. Have you picked up this book? Are you playing this army? How have your games been going since it's been out? It's obviously been out for a hot second now, but I just kind of got around to really taking a closer look at this and really seeing if I could vibe out something better than this, but that's where we are. So again, let me know your comments down below, and of course, if you like this content, feel free to like, share, subscribe. Feel free to let me know what you think down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you also really want to play the Darkoath, or do you just think that their rules should be a little better for what they are? But until next time, I've been Tattooed Tabletop. Now go paint something.